Hello Skillr Boxers. Today we will be taking a look at the different versions of Canelo Alvarez, analysing exactly how his style changed through the years, his different versions, and also understanding why there has been these changes or evolutions. We'll be analysing 5 distinct versions of Canelo, spanning 4 different weight classes. We'll make a key distinction between the younger Canelo who fought in super welterweight and the more mature version in junior middleweight. Although these are essentially the same weight class, Canelo's body adapted differently during these periods, resulting in significant changes in his style. Keep in mind that many of these fights were at catch weights, so they may not align perfectly with the weight class limits, but they still provide valuable insights. The 5 different versions of Canelo we'll discuss are super welterweight or junior middleweight, middleweight, super middleweight, and light heavyweight. So let's start with the first one. But first, remember you can watch the ultimate Mexico vs Puerto Rico rivalry as Canelo defends his titles against Edgar Berlanga September 14th on DAZN. Check the link in the description and don't miss the fight. Super welter. This is the earliest version of Canelo, characterised by his youth and relative inexperience. While he still possessed agility, this version of Canelo was more flat-footed and rigid, relying heavily on a disciplined high guard to block punches.
Connection he has to the fans, his promoter.
He occasionally showed flashes of head movement, but it wasn't a primary tool in his defensive arsenal. As a younger fighter, Canelo was also more anxious and less patient, often throwing very long combinations at really fast speed.
И противника раскрыть. Он держится молодцом, ничего не скажешь. Получить нужно противник.
His long combinations were cleverly used to set up shots, mixing head and body attacks, as well as straight and looping punches.
If you look at this kid here, he's different because
What made him stand out during this period were his fast hands and combination punching, though his counter-punching ability was still developing and would become a greater asset later in his career.
We've reached the midpoint as a
Junior middleweight. After the Mayweather fight, a new chapter began in Canelo's career. He returned as a more muscular and physically imposing fighter within the same weight class. Although he still threw combinations, they were fewer in number compared to his earlier days.
as Canelo, true to form.
You gotta mix your combinations up like that. Game, it's more about how.
He has started slowly, but I else about it. We saw a gentleman going to be a good style.
In this version, Canelo's power saw a significant increase, leading to more knockouts.
Kirkland does the uppercut in around that tough guard and another body shot.
All intelligently set up with feints and combinations.
Oh, and there it is!
Tricky style. Want to fight. He's never going to give up.
On his legs and up.
His ability to set up punches became more refined, and his counter-punching skills matured considerably, often punishing opponents with powerful shots after making them miss. Perhaps a lesson learned from the Mayweather fight, Canelo's head movement and defensive skills saw major improvements. He became more comfortable evading shots and using head movement.
Right now, there's opportunities for Alvarez, and Angolo's a dangerous hurt fight.
Shifting away from the rigid high guard of his younger years.
Set things up in his last fight against
This is Canelo up a little bit, but getting some exposure to it.
The Philly shell defense also became a more prominent part of his game, adding new dimensions to his defensive strategy.
He's going to sneak off this left shoulder. Nice job. Round 2 here from Beefy Smith. No doubt that Canelo Alvarez is trying to fight back here. Great resolve being shown by
Middleweight. At middleweight, we see one of the purest versions of Canelo as a boxer. His head movement reached its peak, allowing him to comfortably evade shots using both his head and feet.
All of these shots up, the scoring blows. Yeah, and you're at least jab, lots of jabs, nothing landed. However, Canelo,
right uppercut. The ring with his feet, his head movement.
waits it with a jab. Look at him slip all these shots. The hardest thing to do in the
Turned it with a left hook to the liver there, but
and he's winning these rounds. That hook touched Canelo out.
His footwork also evolved significantly, transitioning from a more flat-footed style to a bouncier and more agile approach. This period marked Canelo as a more cerebral fighter, focusing on outthinking his opponents rather than eagerly seeking knockouts.
no inch, hasn't moved back. Good hook there.
Offensively, although this version may have been less powerful due to the increased weight, Canelo maintained his speed and developed a sharper punching style.
The boogeyman from the court. Uppercuts from Alvarez.
With that plan in mind, good amateur career. Constant.
However, the larger opponents in this division were better equipped to absorb his punches compared to those in the lower divisions.
And judges are concentrating for the entire
Super middleweight. At super middleweight, Canelo's style continued to evolve with the added weight. Despite his small frame for the division, he adapted by shifting towards a more pressure-orientated style, often pushing the pace of the fight. At this stage, Canelo was a seasoned fighter with a vast array of tricks to outsmart his opponents while maintaining an aggressive approach.
The thing about Canelo is, no matter what, he always looks like he's in control. Even when the other guy's doing well, he looks under control.
He had grown more comfortable with the power he carried at this weight, and his style became increasingly focused on overpowering his opponents.
Blocking those shots, believe me.
Oh, and 1-2 and down goes Yildirim.
The overhand right became a frequently used weapon, particularly against taller opposition. We also saw improvements in his ability to cut off the ring and in his defensive skills, allowing him to apply pressure while bobbing and weaving effectively.
Grazing shot, but Canelo's so good with his feints and his head movements.
He can't push Canelo back.
So Smith fighting back in that.
During this period, Canelo began to utilize punches to the arms as a strategic tool, a technique he would later keep using.
Snaps back the head of Callum Smith and Canelo, and Canelo just got out of the 8 and 175. Canelo thus far, he has been a little bit more answered.
Before we get to the last version of Canelo, remember you can watch him fight Edgar Berlanga with the link on the description, and also get a 7-day free trial of DAZN with the pay-per-view. light heavyweight. This is the heaviest version of Canelo, and as a result, the most flat-footed. While his head movements remained good, he became more reliant on his high guard. In this division, Canelo took more punches and often waited for the right moment to land a big counter. The extra weight also seemed to affect his stamina, leading to noticeable fatigue in the later rounds. It's challenging to fully assess his style at this weight class, as he's only had 2 fights here, each under very different circumstances. Against Kovalev, Canelo appeared more natural in his physique, whereas against Bivol, he appeared more muscular, but also more rigid and tight. Canelo still carried power and found comfort in his high guard, often waiting for opponents to get comfortable before launching counters, particularly through the catch and shoot technique.
A full 6 feet tall. I thought he showed a lot of poise. He had that jab hung down low. You may have to ask yourself at a certain point.
We have seen over the years he has gone through very different styles affected by the weight and the opposition. But now, we would love to know your opinion on the comments. Which is your favourite version of Canelo? Let us know, and if you enjoyed this video, you can find out more on our channel. And to your left, we have chosen a video that we thought you may like.